What's going on in Sarasota for months, Tampa Bay residents have rallied against a proposed cruise port near the Sunshine Skyway Bridge. And in March, it looked like they had won. Governor DeSantis, alongside State Senator Jim Boyd, signed Senate Bill 302 to protect the Terracea Aquatic Preserve for generations. But the company behind the project, SSA Marine, has been silent. No statement from them, no withdrawal of its plan. Requests from several media outlets, including the Tampa Bay Times, have gone unanswered. Emails obtained by Suncoast Searchlight show environmentalists warned Senator Boyd that his bill wasn't tight enough. Critics say that key language appears to have left the door open for large-scale development in these protected waters. Independent attorneys are agreeing with watchdogs, and they say that the final law is actually weaker than most people understand. Alice Herman is here. You broke this story. Tell us about, what this means. What exactly in the language makes critics so nervous?
Sure. So the amendment that Senator Boyd put into this broader bill on coastal conservation called SB 302 basically outlines under what circumstances it's permissible to dredge in Terracea, which is an aquatic preserve. And there's basically a list of caveats to the no dredging rule. A, B, and C are pretty benign, like dredging to get rid of stagnant water, for example. And then letter D in the amendment says that it's permissible to dredge for the creation of a marina. And that was something that I think really stood out to critics and opponents of the initial cruise port idea, because it originally, this is an aquatic preserve, it is protected under state law, and before this bill was passed, there was no exception, no exemption to limits on dredging for marinas. And now that's enshrined in state statute. And so when Governor DeSantis signed that bill into law, there was a lot of fanfare around it because it was presented as the bill that would block the cruise port. And so, I was curious about it and how it was passed and looked into it a little more deeply.
Tell our viewers about the reporting process, the going over the different emails. Who were the emails between?
Yeah, absolutely. So I had requested emails to and from Senator Boyd's office and different groups that I thought might be lobbying around it. So the lobbyists associated with the companies that had proposed this cruise port and also some of the environmental groups. And what I got back were dozens of emails, and one really stood out. It was one from Tampa Bay Waterkeeper, which has opposed the cruise port idea and really led efforts to block it. And the director of that group wrote in an email to Senator Boyd's office, basically, look, the way this is written doesn't sufficiently protect Terracea, and in fact could leave the door open. I'm not quoting this directly, but paraphrasing. You can read my report for the direct quote. But I looked at that and I thought, well, that's interesting. There was a red flag that was raised before this was passed. Let's get a second opinion from attorneys and other advocates.
Was there ever a response from the senator?
The email, his office received the email and acknowledged receipt.
He did acknowledge receipt, okay.
Yeah, acknowledged receipt of the email. When I reached out to Senator Boyd's office, I got a statement back saying that, attributed to Senator Boyd, reaffirming his opposition to the cruise port idea and saying that the bill does defend against that. And they said that, Tampa Bay Waterkeeper had proposed this language too late in the game.
And that's something that we've heard from so many voters who showed up, who've said that they really thought that they had more time to weigh in on this.
Well, like I said, the newspaper dug into this as well. Through his sources, they found that this entire thing was a scam from day one, because they bought this property for $18 million. And a few months earlier, there was some piece of property, I think Mark had told me about, up in North Florida, that the state paid $68 million for a property that had been bought for a pittance before that. So these guys, they bought this property and they started doing their homework. Says, man, we can't do anything with this, so let's flip it. Well, you can't flip a property you can't do anything with.
That's the allegation.
Right.
Mark,
so that's
do
the
you agree?
Yeah, it's Florida Statute 704, which is a conservation easement,
right,
which the state pays the owner of the property not to develop. They still own the property, but it protects the conservation, and it's happening all over the state.
Right.
So even though they were offered money originally, I think they're holding out for potentially more money. But there's several other properties. There's 700 acres at the Rattlesnake, and Not Cohen Tract is another 328 acres. And then you got the SSA Marine and the Slipknot that all could potentially make a lot of money from not having it.
Well,
I think the bottom line for me is that this company, SSA Marine, made a really big purchase. They spent $18 million on an island, an undeveloped island in the aquatic preserve.
Exactly.
Are they going to just sit on it? Do they want to sell it back to the state? Do they want to develop it? We don't know, and we also don't know because they're not talking to the public right
So
now.
I would suspect that what would happen is they're going to charge, you're taking away our private property rights, that you're not allowing us to do the property.
Yeah.
I'm just saying what they're going to probably argue.
And this is